Story 1. So, this is kind of long, but I will provide enough context to explain the situation clearly. For more details, I made a couple of posts venting about it a few weeks ago, although not on this particular forum. Ages and genders are hidden to remain anonymous in case someone in my family comes across this post. My uncle got married, and long before the wedding, I asked him if I could bring my partner along. Both he and his wife were perfectly fine with it. However, my mom was against it. She claimed it was a family-only event, but kept changing her reasoning every time the topic came up. The truth is, she's not accepting of my relationship, and she couldn't come up with a consistent excuse to exclude my partner without sounding prejudiced. It was extremely stressful and frustrating, so I decided that my partner and I wouldn't stay at her place during the wedding. I live in another city for college, so I informed my uncle, my mom, my dad, and another uncle about our lodging plans. Everything seemed fine until about a week before the wedding. That's when my mom asked when my partner and I would be arriving at her house. I reminded her that we wouldn't be staying with her and that we had already made arrangements for our stay. She became furious, accusing me of tearing the family apart and saying I had no right to make decisions for myself while she was paying for my college. I got upset and told her I needed space from her, and her behavior was exactly why I needed it. She responded by saying that if I wanted to be so independent, then so be it. She would no longer support my college education financially. After the wedding, once I returned to my college town, I spoke with my college counselor and my program coordinator to inform them of the situation. They were very understanding, and together we came up with a plan in case my mom actually followed through on her threat. I asked my mom in a serious tone whether she truly meant what she said or if it was something she blurted out in the heat of the moment. She didn't answer directly. Instead, she told me that if I really wanted an answer, I should talk to my dad, and that he would have to assess whether I was mentally stable enough for her to continue funding my education. My parents are divorced, but my dad has always acted as a mediator in important family matters because my mom and I don't get along well. So when she implied that even that wouldn't resolve anything, it felt like we were back in the same cycle again. There's always a pointless argument. She makes a threat. I have to go through my dad, and then she acts like nothing happened. This time, though, it was my breaking point. Dealing with her in this way always stresses me out and has even affected my academic performance. So, I had another discussion with my college counselor and my program coordinator to further refine our plan. I simply cannot afford to pay both rent and college expenses while living in this city. So I've decided to move in with my partner in a different city and switch to online classes for the remainder of my degree. My program coordinator is going to assist me in applying for a scholarship to cover part of my tuition. I also plan to apply for scholarships offered by larger companies and government programs to help fund my education. This route may be difficult, but it's necessary for my peace of mind and stability. I had a conversation with my dad about everything. He seemed genuinely concerned and asked me if I was sure about this decision. I explained how tense my relationship with my mom has become and how I can't risk my future relying on someone who uses it as leverage whenever she's upset. That's not the kind of support I can depend on. He understood and asked how he could help me through this. I told him I only needed the same kind of help he's already been giving me since I started college. He sends me money to pay rent, and I plan to use the same amount for rent, groceries, and any doctor's appointments or medicine I might need. My dad said that was fine and confirmed he would continue to send the same amount of support. Fortunately, my tuition for the current semester had already been paid before the wedding, so all I need to do now is focus on my studies, get good grades, and make sure I don't fail any classes. After I move in with my partner, I plan to reduce contact with my mom. I will inform her that she no longer needs to pay any of my college expenses moving forward and that I don't want to be around her unless she begins therapy. I don't have high hopes that she'll change, but the main reason I'll maintain any contact at all is because she still pays for my phone bill. She wouldn't like the idea of it, but she'd hate it even more if she had no way to reach me at all. That's one of the unfortunate lessons I learned from her while living under her roof, keep secrets and look for people's weak points to use them for your own advantage. I know it might sound entitled of me, but continuing to let her pay my phone bill is a way for me to keep communication open with my dad. I don't want to burden him with more than he's already doing for me. That's the reason I'd rather let her cover this one small thing. Hopefully, in a year, I'll be able to pay for it myself. Story 2. This just happened to me yesterday. It's nothing crazy, but I thought it was worth sharing with you all. After frustratingly trying to get the bolt that plugs the oil drain on my car as well as the oil filter, I decided I should go out to get the supplies I needed to help make my job easier changing the oil. After picking up a quick dinner and the tools I needed to loosen everything, I decided I might as well go shopping for what I needed since there was a store right across the street. At first, I grabbed my essentials. Amazingly, everything was in stock at this store, and I decided to look through the liquor section to see if they carried my favorite craft beer and see what else they had. While I was looking, a man in his 80s, henceforth known as Man, walked into the area. "Ma'am, I can't find the toothpaste." Me. "Well, this is the liquor section." Asterisk chuckles asterisk. I know this is. I think it's down aisle 16, but I am not sure. At this point, I realize he thinks I work at this store. I am wearing a black tee, black jeans, and a stainless steel watch and necklace, and the store uniform is khakis and a black polo with the store logo on it. I was about to tell the man that I couldn't help him because I was not an employee, but I decided that I wasn't in a rush, and if he didn't realize I wasn't an employee, he might really need the help. Me. "How about I help you find what you need?" Man. "Yes, thank you." I find the aisle where I believe it is, and I grab him a couple things of toothpaste, show him what is available, and tell him the prices. After he chooses what he wants, we make our way to the cat food aisle. We went through all the cans of cat food that were available, more options than I thought existed. He would pick up a can and ask me to read it. I would tell him what it said, and I would hold which cans he decided he wanted. After about 10 minutes of this, he has everything he needs, and he mentions he had some coffee stored at a cashier and asked me to take him to the lady that was keeping it for him. Me. "Oh, I'm sorry, sir. I don't actually work here. I just wanted to help you to make sure you could get what you needed and get out quickly so you weren't around so many people for a long time." After he realizes what happened for the last 10 minutes, we try to find the person who was holding on to his coffee, but he decided to just visit a random cashier. After this, I kept looking through the amazing liquor selections that they had in the store, checked out, and went home to finish working on my car. We did stay 6 feet apart at most times, unless I was reading a label for him, which would be brief, and I don't always help out whoever thinks I work wherever I shop. It happens often, and I do help out most of the time, but the place was busy, and there were not a lot of workers, so everyone was busy. If someone needs help, you don't have to be their personal shopper, but it's always nice to help someone find what they're looking for. A little kindness goes a long way. Stay healthy, everyone. Story 3. I'm a 30-year-old female, and my mother is 56. I've made a post on here previously about how entitled and selfish my mother is. Since that post, numerous people have messaged and commented that I should cut ties with my mother. I'd honestly considered it for a long time, but always made excuses to not do it. After months of thinking it over, I had a handful of reasons to keep contact with her and a mountain of pain that she's caused over the years, so I decided to cut her out of my life. It's been 4 months now and I feel great. I didn't think it would create such a difference in my life, but oh my God, the thought of not having to hear her southern fake sweet grandma voice make offensive comments about my friends or lecture me about wasting my life because I didn't live it to her wishes makes me so elated beyond words. The only time it's not great is when I have my sisters message me saying, "So mom did this, shocker." And we all get pissed off at her new levels of entitlement and stupidity. Her current stupidity has us all pissed off for different reasons. My mom never told her brothers or father that I cut her out. She probably didn't want to look like she failed at parenting, especially since she's the only one of her siblings to have ever had kids. So when they sent the Christmas money to her and said to divide it amongst us 4 girls, including me, she never corrected them. Warning: math will be found in the next paragraph. Apologies, but it is accurate and important. Instead, she messaged my sisters and me, but I have her blocked, and asked them what they wanted for Christmas. We all know her game. Each family member sends $100 per child. 4 children with 3 gifts each means a total of wanting $200 in her bank account. She never gave us the full amount of that money, ever. What she would do is ask what we wanted, and either buy the cheapest version of it or buy what she thought we would like, and never spend more than $20 per child. Meaning, she was given wanting $200, spent $80 or less, and kept wanting $120 or more every year. That woman is still in debt somehow. My sisters and I figured this out years ago and reasoned that while we were small children under her roof, that's fine. You need to house us, feed us, clothe us. Kids are expensive. But when we turned 16 and were made to get a job and pay for our own phone bill, car payment, car insurance, groceries, clothes, etc. Yeah, no, give me my damn money. So when she asks, "What do you girls want for Christmas?" they responded like we have every year: cash. She apparently tried to argue that 2020 has been hard for her and that she couldn't afford to give much this year. My sisters fired back with, "That's cool. What did our uncles and grandfather send you? If you don't remember, we can just call them and ask." That got her to begrudgingly admit what they sent and say it'll be deposited into their accounts soon. Then she ended it by saying that she wasn't going to send me my money. She was going to just hold on to it until I spoke to her again. My older sister blew up at her for this. Point blank told her that she was either being manipulative so that I would talk to her, or she was being a thief and trying to pocket someone else's money. My mom tried to ignore her, but my sister wouldn't let up on this. Eventually, my sister messaged me and told me what was going on. I was pissed off, but not that surprised by this. I had honestly forgotten all about receiving Christmas money. I expected a card or something, but was just going to send it back to them anyway like I never received it. So really, she could have sent me a check, and when I sent it back, she could have just pocketed it then. Would have saved everyone this mess. Realizing that, when my sister asked what I wanted to do about this, I told her that while the money would help because 2020 has been hard financially, if she could somehow get the money from our mom, then to just split it among her and my other sisters. I don't have a relationship with those family members anymore, and taking money from them, even meant as a gift, seems wrong. My sister said she understood and would pass the message along. But oh my God, I am still pissed off that my mom is doing this. I feel like she's not trying to be a thief here, but more a manipulator. When I cut ties with her and said my goodbyes in an email, she replied by saying that she would respect my wishes, but also told a story of how she cut out her mom when I was just a little girl, and months later, her mom shows up unannounced to my birthday party, and while they didn't speak during the party, they did talk afterwards. They reconciled and were very close until the day her mother died. I felt like that story was a giant red flag saying, "I'll show up in your life when I want to, and you'll have to talk to me. Then you'll forgive me, and we'll be mommy and daughter again." Hell no. Any attempts to manipulate me into talking to her is messed up and will not work. I feel like this is just the first of many attempts to come. But until I see a hard change in her, I refuse to let her back into my life. Sorry for the incredibly long story. I wanted to post it here because reading a lot of these entitled parent stories are what helped me see how truly toxic my mother is, because she is so similar to the Karens in most of these stories. If you have a toxic parent, then please know that you can cut them out of your life, and you should not let them back in unless you feel ready to. Don't let them pull petty mess like this to make you talk to them. It's messed up, and giving them what they want will only encourage their poor behavior. Story 4. The whole mess started because I needed to pick up some protein powder and vegetables after my morning training session. I was still wearing my gym clothes, just a plain t-shirt and shorts. Nothing that screamed fighter to anyone passing by. I'm a pretty big guy, around 6'2", and about 190 pounds of muscle, but I've always been careful about how I carry myself in public. When you know how to hurt people, you have a responsibility not to. I was walking through the parking lot, minding my own business, when this kid on a bicycle came flying around the corner of a parked SUV. He must have been going 15 miles per hour, easy. The kid wasn't paying attention at all, probably looking at his phone or something. I had maybe half a second to react before he would have plowed right into me. I dodged to the right, stepping quickly out of the way. The kid whooshed past me, completely oblivious to how close he'd come to a collision. But in my quick movement to avoid him, I accidentally bumped into a woman who was walking behind me. I didn't see her coming because I was focused on not getting run down by the bicycle. The bump wasn't gentle. She was a middle-aged woman, probably in her 50s, and when my shoulder connected with hers, she lost her balance and went down hard on the asphalt. Her purse scattered its contents everywhere, and she scraped her knee pretty badly. I immediately felt terrible. I rushed over to help her up and apologized, explaining that there had been a kid on a bike and I had to move fast to avoid getting hit. I told her I was really sorry and asked if she was okay. She was getting to her feet, and I could see she was really angry. She yelled at me, asking what was wrong with me and accusing me of pushing her down on purpose. I tried to explain again that I really didn't mean to hurt her and that I was just trying to avoid getting hit by that bicycle. I offered to help her gather up her things that had scattered from her purse. I started collecting her items, keys, wallet, makeup, receipts, but she got even angrier and told me not to touch her stuff. She screamed that I had assaulted her. I promised her it was an accident and offered to pay for any medical bills if she was hurt. I was trying my best to be reasonable and make things right. That's when things went from bad to worse. Without any warning, she hauled back and slapped me across the face as hard as she could. The sound echoed through the parking lot like a gunshot. My cheek stung, and I could feel the heat spreading across my face. I just stood there, shocked. A crowd was starting to gather, people stopping to watch what was happening. Some were recording with their phones. I knew I had to stay calm, even though every instinct I'd trained for years was telling me to defend myself. I asked her not to hit me and told her I understood she was upset, but that hitting me wasn't going to solve anything. She was screaming now, saying she would do whatever she wanted and that I had attacked her first. More people were gathering around us. I could see some folks were pulling out their phones to record. I kept my hands at my sides, trying to show everyone that I wasn't being aggressive. She accused me of thinking I could push women around just because I was big. I tried to tell her that wasn't what happened and that I was trying to apologize and make things right. But she wasn't listening. She wound up for another slap, this one aimed at the other side of my face. That's where my training kicked in, not the fighting part, but the defensive part. When someone swings at you, you protect yourself. I caught her wrist when her hand came toward my face. It was purely reflexive, but she was putting so much force into the slap that when I stopped her hand, her own momentum carried her forward, and she flipped over, landing on her back on the ground again. The crowd gasped. Someone screamed. And that's when I heard the sirens. Apparently, someone had already called the police when they saw the woman go down the first time. 2 officers came running over, and of course, what they saw was a big guy standing over a woman who was on the ground. One of the officers shouted at me to step away from her right now. I immediately put my hands up and backed away, telling them that this was all a misunderstanding. The other officer told me to turn around and put my hands behind my back. They cuffed me right there in the parking lot, while the woman was screaming about how I'd attacked her. I didn't resist or argue. I just kept telling them that there were witnesses and asking them to check with the people who saw what really happened. One officer asked the woman if she needed medical attention. She said yes and told them that I had pushed her down twice. She demanded that I be arrested for assault. They put me in the back of the police car while they talked to witnesses. I could see them interviewing people, and thankfully, several folks were telling them what they saw. The kid on the bicycle had even come back when he saw the commotion. After about 20 minutes, the officers came back to the car. One of them explained that they had talked to several witnesses, and they all said the same thing. The first contact was accidental, and the second time was me defending myself when she tried to hit me again. The other officer told me they were going to uncuff me, but that I needed to come to the station to give a statement. When they let me out of the car, the woman was still there, and she was furious. She was yelling that this was ridiculous and that I had assaulted her. She threatened to sue me. One officer told her that based on witness statements, she had struck me first after an accidental collision, and that was assault. She insisted that I was lying and that everyone was lying. The other officer explained that they had multiple independent witnesses, and some people had recorded parts of the incident on their phones. That's when they told me I could press charges against her for assault. Honestly, I wasn't sure I wanted to at first. The whole thing seemed like it had gotten out of hand enough already. But then she started threatening to sue me and telling the officers that she was going to ruin my life for what I'd done to her. I decided that yes, I wanted to press charges. They arrested her right there in the parking lot. She was screaming about how unfair it was when they put her in handcuffs and put her in the other police car. She yelled that this was discrimination and that they were taking my side because I was a man. One of the officers told her they were taking the witness's side because they saw what actually happened. At the station, I gave my statement and found out that 3 different people had recorded at least part of the incident. The videos clearly showed her hitting me first and then trying to hit me again before I defended myself. The woman was charged with assault, and I never heard from her again. The whole thing was settled when she agreed to pay a fine and attend anger management classes. The kid on the bicycle even came to the police station with his mom to apologize for causing the whole mess in the first place. He felt terrible that his careless riding had led to everything that happened. One of the videos ended up online, and for about a week, I was that MMA fighter who got arrested for self-defense. It wasn't exactly the kind of fame I was looking for, but at least people could see what really happened. I still go to that grocery store, and sometimes people recognize me as the guy from that video. Most of them are pretty cool about it. They understand that sometimes you just get caught up in a crazy situation through no fault of your own. Story 5. I work in a high-tech industry that provides network security products to some of the top corporations in the world, such as Apple, Facebook, and Salesforce. My job is as a sales engineer. That means I collaborate with a direct sales representative to ensure that the solution we present is technically accurate, solves the customer's issue, and aligns with their business requirements. The sales representative is responsible for managing the relationship and guiding the client through the qualification to purchase process. It's not their responsibility to act as the technical expert on the account. That's my role. The two of us approach the account together and work face-to-face with the customer's teams. This process often begins at the executive level, such as the Chief Technology Officer, and then proceeds down to department-specific teams like the security team, network team, information technology team, procurement, and legal. I have been doing this job for a very long time, and I'm good at it. I consistently receive excellent feedback from customers because I work diligently to understand their issues and ensure the technology matches their specific needs. At a previous company, which I will leave unnamed, I handled several major, recognizable accounts that I will also refrain from mentioning. I had been employed there for over 4 years and was quite successful. Eventually, a new sales representative was hired. The plan was for him to start with smaller accounts so he could learn the products and gain experience with relatively low-risk customers. Within just a few months, he had already worked with 2 of my peers, both of whom eventually refused to continue partnering with him. Although he was making sales, they were unhappy with his behavior and requested to be reassigned to a different representative. Normally, I wouldn't be assigned to smaller accounts because I was a senior member of the team, but my manager asked me to work with this representative and try to identify the issue. Typically, during a sales call, the sales representative, let's call him Mr. Arrogant, would open the meeting, introduce everyone, outline the agenda, and provide marketing materials if necessary. Then he would hand the discussion over to me, so I could ask the customer about their needs and objectives. From there, I would guide them through a technical presentation. This was the standard approach used by all of our sales representatives. The highly experienced ones could manage most of a technical presentation. But as soon as the conversation reached in-depth, technical topics, they would defer to the engineer. That's the entire reason we attended these sales calls, to prevent the sales representative from getting into difficult technical territory without support. It was never the salesperson's responsibility to handle the technical portion of the sale. Never. So, Mr. Arrogant and I headed off to our first sales call together. While we were driving to the meeting in his car, we discussed the customer, their type of business, and which products they might need. This was all just speculation at that point. We didn't yet know the customer's specific problem, let alone the details of their network or business environment. I mentioned that I had worked with this customer previously and felt comfortable with their setup, though it might have changed. As we continued driving, he turned to me and said, "Okay, I know everything I need now. When we go in, let me do all the talking." He had only been with the company for a month or two. I gently told him that this was a bad idea and that it would be best for each of us to handle our respective roles. But he wasn't open to that suggestion at all. Mr. Arrogant very clearly told me that the account belonged to him, not to me, and he wouldn't allow me into the room unless I agreed to let him take the lead. He claimed he knew more than I did and said I should sit back and learn from him. I tried several times very calmly to convince him to let me perform my duties. He refused every time. So, while we were sitting in the customer's lobby, I texted my manager and explained the situation. My manager texted back something along the lines of, "If Mr. Arrogant thinks he can do your job, let him give it a shot." So, we enter the meeting. The client had gathered some very senior staff members. The head of security, the head of networking, and the head of information technology were all seated in the conference room. Mr. Arrogant launched into his marketing pitch without even asking a single question. He quickly transitioned into recommending products, stating that they needed a very expensive solution labeled as Product 1 and another called Product 2. He added that they would also require a 3-year support plan and a significant amount of custom development work to integrate everything. When he finished speaking, the room fell into complete silence. After a brief pause, the Chief Technology Officer turned and looked directly at me. He asked, "So, do you agree with what was just presented?" Before I could speak, Mr. Arrogant interrupted, saying, "Of course he does." I stayed silent for a moment and looked at the Chief Technology Officer. The Chief Technology Officer then said, "I'd really like to hear what you have to say. If you prefer, Mr. Arrogant can wait outside." At that point, Mr. Arrogant finally fell quiet. I replied, "Actually, I have no idea if your environment has changed, what your current technical setup looks like, or anything else about your situation. But I can assure you that you definitely do not need Product 1 and Product 2. You might require Product 3 or even Product 4, but I would need to learn much more about your infrastructure before making that determination." The Chief Technology Officer turned to Mr. Arrogant and said, "Yes, I think you should wait in the lobby. I don't believe you're the right person to manage our account. I'll reach out to your management team this afternoon to ask if someone else might be available to take over." Mr. Arrogant tried to respond, clearly flustered, but then quietly left the room. As you might expect, I had to get a ride back to the office. When the meeting was over, he didn't offer to take me back. I ended up calling for a ride service to return. But the most telling part? No one at the company ever had to work with Mr. Arrogant again. As far as I know, his desk was completely empty the following week. Story 6. To help pay the bills until I get called back to work. I got a job as a personal shopper. It's a bit rough sometimes, but it does get me out of the house for a few hours, and because it's the holidays, it does bring in some decent money. Our company has us wear black t-shirts with the company logo along with face masks due to the bug. But other than that, you can wear pretty much anything you want as long as you look professional. Normally people don't bother me, especially seeing as 1. I don't have a name tag identifying me. 2. I'm clearly looking at my phone, which has my customer's order on it, and I'm also communicating with them. Today, I got an order at a certain store that requires its employees to wear a red shirt. Luckily, I had been to this particular store many times, both for orders and for myself, and am friendly with most of the staff, including the managers. This particular order required me to go through self-checkout. The customer had already ordered everything, and I just needed to pick everything up. Once I got the all clear from the employee running the self-checkout lane, I went to one of the closed checkout lanes to bag up the order so I could get it to my car. Again, nothing too unusual. I was wearing my black company shirt, a nice pair of jeans, a comfortable pair of sneakers, and a thin jacket. Not a scrap of red on me, and the light for the checkout lane was turned off. As I was packing up, I heard an oncoming cart, and then the sound of plastic and cardboard. I looked up to see our friendly neighborhood Karen unloading her 3 overloaded carts in the closed checkout lane while I was packing things away. I groaned. I knew my friends at this store were going to have a major headache, just from how she wasn't really paying attention to me and couldn't see I am not an employee of this store. I finished bagging my things and waited for her to make eye contact with me. And when she did, I swear I heard the theme for The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly playing. She pointed at the register and nodded as if I was a dumb person who didn't know what she was supposed to be doing. I just picked up my bags, waved at her with a smile, and walked off, leaving her stuck there and me with a new way to get back at the Karens. Update: I do have a conclusion to this story. Early this morning, I decided to go to the red store to get my own groceries and bumped into one of the managers. Let's call him Isaac. An important thing to know about Isaac is that he's good at saying, "You've pushed my last button, now get the hell out of here before I go Hulk on you," in the most polite way possible. He's also protective of his employees. Anyway, Isaac happened to see me and came over with a teasing smile. "You know, you caused us a lot of trouble yesterday." I asked what he meant, and I hope you have the popcorn ready. Isaac was on duty yesterday. After I made my dramatic exit, Karen did as some of you predicted and tried to bully some of the store workers into opening up the register. Unlucky for her, there weren't enough employees around to open extra registers. Her squawking, Isaac's words, not mine, soon attracted Isaac's attention, and he came over. Isaac hadn't had the chance to begin his "How may I help you?" spiel when Karen began her tirade about me and how employees really need to deliver, especially in these tough times, yada, yada, yada. Through her and the worker at the checkout lane, Isaac figured out what had happened, along with who had offended Karen's delicate sensitivities. "Ma'am, that was a personal shopper who is not employed with our company. We leave this register closed so they can pack up their order. If you want, I'll help you over to the next register and check you out." Isaac doesn't like rewarding bad behavior, but sometimes some battles just aren't worth picking. Now, most normal people would realize their error, apologize profusely to everyone, repack their cart, and go to an open register with meekness and humility. And if she had done that, Isaac tells me, he would have helped her. Karens, unfortunately, aren't most normal people. Karen decided to puff out her chest and play the weakest card in her hand. "Well, since you're here, and I'm not going to call corporate, do you mind opening up this register and checking me out since I'm already here?" She tried saying this in a sticky sweet voice, which is one of Isaac's pet peeves. Isaac looked at her and said in a professional but firm, "Ma'am, you're asking me to check you out of a register dedicated just to personal shoppers after harassing not only several employees, but after I volunteered to help you." Karen, realizing that she had probably pissed off the one person who had been most willing to help her, slowly reloaded her carts and slunk to an open register. Isaac watched her to make sure she wouldn't cause a problem. She meekly paid for her groceries and left,